His father must have been an octopus.
Have any of you seen this new makeover article?
Yeah, have you ever noticed that most of them look better before their makeover?
Yeah. Can I have your attention, please?
Uh-oh, this sounds important.
What now? You've been in that meeting with our esteemed editor for a dog's age. Believe me, I was there. I know how long it was. I had to listen to Ellen for 2 hours. Let me guess. This means we're going to get stuck doing another one of those thankless jobs. I'm afraid so. Remember a few years ago we ran that essay contest on the topic of the best childhood babysitter?
You've got to be kidding me. Not another essay contest.
Verily, thou speakest true.
Wait a minute. Not the Mother's Day contest that the publicity department has been running.
I'm afraid we've been charged with choosing the finalists. You know, why do they always drop the most criminally sentimental slop on us at the last
I
minute?
don't get it. Ellen hates her mother. Why would she want to run with something like that?
Ned, past tense. Ellen's last shrink convinced her that all the problems could be traced to her relationship with her mother, but her current shrink says that's infantile and passé.
So where is the Mother contest coming?
Her current couch doctor says that as the editor of a women's magazine, she has all the information at her fingertips to prove his theory.
Which is...
The effect of mothers on their daughters is negligible in the negative, and the effect for the better is in the positive.
So what you're saying is this isn't just an essay contest, it's psychotherapy for our editor.
All right. Decision's been made. We will process the entries down here, and Beth's people upstairs will take care of publicity, rules, yada, yada.
This is going to be a long day. Okay, this is not the babysitter contest.
What do you mean?
I mean, I don't know if I can go on reading some of these.
Well, which is it? The ones that praise their mother's role for making them the success they are today, or the ones that read like Mommy Dearest, forcing them to overcome their early lives to make them the success they are today?
Settle down, Bar.
Hey, you're not reading these.
Oh, mine have really been interesting.
Well, these actually make me feel really good. My mother died when I was a baby, so I missed out on all the things that these women are describing.
Let's not forget all the negative things you missed.
Maybe we need to divide them into some sort of categories.
Spoken like a former librarian.
Well, like what, Leslie? Tall, short, fat?
No! Funny, sad, heartwarming, usual mush and or complaints.
How about psychotic?
Oh, people, get serious.
Serious. I got a serious one. My mom was one of 8 children, 2 brothers and 5 sisters. My grandfather would tell me that Mom was the only one of his daughters who would drop everything she was doing to spend time with him, a concept she has definitely passed on to me. Little did I know when I was 10 how important those words would be. One cold Saturday morning in January, the world that I had known for 15 years changed dramatically. My dad, at the age of 54, had a massive heart attack and would not survive through the next morning. Here we were, just the 3 of us now, a teenager, a 9-year-old brother, and a 45-year-old unemployed widow. How were we ever going to survive? No job, no car, $300 in a savings account, half of that frozen, and 2 children in private schools. They say that you block out situations that are very painful, and I have come to believe that is true since I have hardly any memory of that year of high school. What I do remember is how incredibly strong my mom was. With the help of neighbors, she was able to acquire a job working as a typist for a printing company with an unbelievable salary of $1 per hour. Wow. Well, since we had no car, her mode of transportation was 2 buses. Overtime was not an option, it was a necessity for the finer things in life, like food, clothing, shelter, and, oh yes, tuition. She was even mugged one night on her way home from work. But that didn't stop her. She was back in the office the next day. On Wednesday nights, the family of 3 would now walk to a local diner for dinner. That was our night out together. Now that I am married and have 2 children, I wonder how she always managed to do it all. The house, the job, the finances, vacation. I'm so truly awed by what she has accomplished all alone.
Impressive. And that's a good
Good
thing.
night. I have a nun.
A nun. Do they have mothers?
Both of you shouldn't say things like that.
What, is God going to strike me dead?
No, but a nun might.
Hey!
One of God's greatest gifts, I think, is memory. The ability to recall the events of the past. Cherished memories.
My fondest memory of my mother is that she always had the time to do whatever had to be done with happiness. My memories of my father are vague, as he died when I was 9. We were an affluent family living in Bergen County and even had live-in help during my early childhood. But when my father died at the young age of 52, all the glitz and glamour came to a screeching halt. My 2 brothers married shortly after my father's death, and there we were, the 3 women musketeers, my mother, my sister, 19, and myself, 9. So off we started on our new adventure and all it would hold for us in the future. My mother procured a position at the local florist where she remained employed until her death in 1967. The memories are vast. The financial struggles, the raising and educating of 2 daughters, and the day-to-day happenings. My mother was the glue and the inspiration for all of us. Her philosophy was to greet each day with happiness and do for her family and others, always with a smile. She truly believed and lived her days fulfilling her philosophy of searching, finding, and procuring everything with happiness and success. I remember vividly the day I told her of my confused desire to become a Sister of Charity. In her quiet, loving, strong voice, she said, "All I can tell you is pursue what you believe will make you happy. And if you follow this and are happy, then this is what God wants you to do. Every obstacle will be removed and you will be happy and succeed." I did, I have, and I am. Thank you, Mom.
Well, I certainly hope we're not going for any sort of theme or category here, because we'll constantly be going from the sublime to the ridiculous and back again. Case in point, my mom, Anna, took a great deal of pride in her appearance. Always the right dress, jewelry to go with it, hair perfect, and she was very proud of her shapely legs. The years took a toll on her legs, and some small, rather purple veins appeared. And to add to the problem, she was bitten by a swarm of red ants. This left brown splotches on her legs. One weekend, Mom went to the beach with her niece and nephew. Everyone was dressed in their bathing suits, waiting for my mom to appear. Well, she did, looking lovely in a stylish bathing suit, but she had on pantyhose. When questioned, she replied that no one would notice because it looked like she had a tan, and besides, it made her feel better because no one could see the brown marks. So they all went into the water having fun, jumping into the waves. When they all returned to the beach chairs, everyone burst out laughing. What had happened was the water had dragged the pantyhose down, and they had bunched up and sagged, making my mother look like she had wrinkled legs. Instead of getting upset, she too laughed and shrugged it off. But that was my mom. She always could laugh with everyone and laugh at herself.
So which was that, ridiculous or sublime?
Neither.
Wait, do we have to nominate a quota for each category or something?
Actually, most of these don't seem to fit what you would call categories. I don't know what you have, but I have some no fathers, incredible stepmoms, eulogies, and even a panegyric.
A what?
Skip it.
Marge is right. There are no consistent categories. This one here is from an immigrant. And listen up, ladies. I've got a guy.
Ooh,
lucky
first
you.
Oh, shut up. This poor guy has a real different take on fun part.
Did you know praying mantis can fly? I found one crawling up the front door of our house one night. That's all I thought they did, crawl. I tried to gently persuade the graceful bug to move, and in doing so, discovered its aerial capabilities. As it fluttered about my head for a few seconds, I let out what can only be described as a girly scream. A high-pitched squeal more suitable for teeny boppers at rock concerts or riders on roller coasters, not a grown man. Later that night, as I retired with my thoughts, it occurred to me that all of my fears somehow had a direct link to my mother. Dogs, doctors, fire, choking. They all have their unique stories and have become firmly entrenched on my fears list thanks to Mom. My brother was born with a hole in his heart. It's probably a miracle he's lived this long, and we are all grateful for that. However, a sick child was the very excuse Mom needed to overreact. Tom wasn't permitted to play sports. He couldn't do a lot of things because of his condition. Me, I was fine, but I was subjected to the same restrictions imposed upon my brother. Except he got to try everything before it was deemed too stressful for him. So I never played Little League, never went to amusement parks, never built a snowman, and never, ever celebrated Halloween.
So, even a man can learn something from his mother?
You know, my mom made me dress up like Snow White for 12 straight Halloweens. What do you think that means?
This is the longest day of my life. Why don't we all just clam up and read a few more of these, or we'll never get through this?
Someone needs a cup of ginseng.
That's what he learned. Yeah, well, we all learn different lessons. I know I sure did. What would anyone learn from an essay I'd write? Oh yeah, that would be interesting. Mother. Well, I could start by saying I'm the product of a divorced mother who had many obstacles to confront. She was from a working-class family with many problems. Lack of money, lack of education, lack of goals were part of her social world. Coping with life on a weekly and monthly basis was a challenge. She had many issues to overcome. My mother married my stepfather when I was 5 years old. My stepfather also had a lack of education and used guilt as a means to control my oldest sister and myself. The usual being a good girl meant so many things and was so confusing. If people had wants or needs outside my parents' thoughts or goals, they were considered stupid, irrelevant, and comments were often made like,
Who do you think you are thinking things like this? We are not the kind of people who need to concern ourselves with things we don't need and can't have. It's a waste of time and it's sinful.
After 2 other children arrived in the family, the needs were greater and the financial strain more difficult. The males were looked up to, and my mother was the product of they know best. My mother, as was typical of the time, let the flow of our lives circle around my stepfather's image of what the family should do on a daily basis. I guess my mother's life was not easy.
Damn right life wasn't easy. I worked long, hard hours in the textile factory. I gardened and I canned and I sewed and knitted for 6 people.
She didn't get a lot of help from my stepfather with the chores around the house. Her hours were long with so many tasks. I did absorb hard work, responsibility, love of nature, honesty, and many other fine value systems that I could pass on to any children I might one day have. All this I learned from my mother. I guess I am grateful for what I did receive. Life is not easy.
Are you feeling any better?
Is it 4:30?
Look, people, I know this is a drag, but there are some lighter moments to share, too. Audrey, I think this is one for you.
Oh, you gotta hear this one. She is 85 years old and still one of the most fun-loving people to hang around with. Oh yes, I do hear the latest market reports.
Cream cheese is on sale for 99 cents.
Or,
I would never spend what you folks pay for coffee.
despite these regular pronouncements, my mother, more often than not, surprises and entertains with her unique philosophy on everything. Oh, you'll hear about it all right, whether you want to or not.
My mother visits us in the spring when she works up the courage to get on a plane. She leaves her lovely cold condo in Florida. Do I misspeak? No. Most seniors I know like warmth and heat and sweaters, but my mother keeps her condo in Florida cold enough to hang meat. The ceiling fans are always on takeoff speed. Her neighbors keep their visits short and sweet because they lose feeling it in their extremities if they stay together. When Mom is up, we have to get used to Mom speak.
Are we going to Mazzaro's today?
It's not Mazzaro's, Mom, it's Morazzo's.
Whatever. I like it better than Shopwell.
There is no Shopwell, it's ShopRite.
Well, I like Mazzaro's better.
She also insists on calling Petties, but let's not go there. We also have to remember Mom's security issues. My mother is compelled to lock any door, anytime, any place. This past June, she and her very happy son-in-law were stuck on the front porch for hours until I got home from work.
So, explain to me again why Mike doesn't lock the door when he sits on the front porch, and why he doesn't always have a key with him.
Compounding the problem was her need to use the facilities. Mom, why didn't you just go to the neighbors?
What do you mean? You expect me to use a stranger's bathroom?
Getting enough sleep and doing too much housework are all important areas of commentary. Despite her eccentricities, my mother is a thoughtful and sensitive person. A deaf childhood friend who lives on Staten Island with an ailing older brother is a persistent worry. Come live with me is a sincere request and topic of continual concern.
Thank you.
My sister and I kid about how we perceive each other to be so much like Mommy. We even compare our daughters with similar character traits to her. Not me, cries each of us defensively. We don't want to associate ourselves with the negative character traits, yet we would be thrilled to have half of her sense of humor, joie de vivre, and determination to live life to the fullest.
Wow, OMG, that's really great. But, you know, even if I had memories of my mother, I'm not quite sure I know how to put them into words like these women are. I mean, where do you begin? And how do you make it so using the neighbor's bathroom?
Ah, simplicity, 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 as Thoreau said. Take this one, for example. She starts with just a kernel of an idea. It was a bitter cold day, and it had snowed the evening before. One of those real northeastern snowstorms that sort of paralyzes cars and other moving vehicles. But the weather was just wonderful for making snowmen, or snow people we call them today, and sledding down our street. I couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old, but I can still see our snow-covered street and feel the biting wind at my face. Mom had to go to the drugstore at the corner, and I really wanted to go with her. So she bundled me up in my snowsuit and mittens, and then plopped me on my brother's wooden sled and took me for a ride down our street. We arrived at the pharmacy very cold and red-cheeked. For some reason, I can't remember what Mom had to buy, but my memory tells me it may have been a prescription for medicine of some kind. Perhaps one of my siblings was sick, but that seems a bit foggy now. Before she paid the cashier, Mom told me to pick out something I would like from the candy counter. There were so many different types of candy: M&M's, Milky Way, Snickers, Mason Mints, malted milk balls. But my eyes fell on a yellow wrapper. Sky Bar. It seemed huge to me then, with 4 kinds of flavors wrapped in a geometric bar of chocolate. There were caramel, fudge, marshmallow, and peanut sections connected like a bridge over a bumpy road. It was like a treasure. And I found it, or Mom actually permitted me to have it. What a treat that was, all the way home, sitting like a royal princess in my snowsuit on the frozen hard sled. I ate every piece of that candy and loved it. I think I even equated that candy with a connection to my mother. Chocolate equals love. How I wish there had been more days like that, she and I alone having fun. That scene came alive every time I saw a Sky Bar in a store. It brought back a great memory. Sky Bars. They're very hard to find these days. I'm not sure they make them anymore. I keep looking for the candy, for the sled, for my mom.
Oh, that's really sweet. Is that meant to be a pun, Audrey? Candy, sweet.
Of course, we have another childhood memory not so sweet.
My mother isn't very logical, which I find hard to swallow being a math whiz. My mother works on the theory, if you wish and pray for it long enough, it will happen. She's a Pollyanna type of person. Everything will work out for the best, she would say. This drove me nuts in high school. Of course, life isn't very fair when you're in high school. I would come home complaining about this and that, and wanting my parents to do something about it because it made no sense the way the school was handling it. My mother would say, "Just roll with the punches, dear. You can't fight City Hall." My dad would sit back and laugh and smirk because he knew that my mother's logic made no sense and that mine did. I finally got to the point that I couldn't take it anymore, and I told my mother, "It's a good thing that you weren't married to one of the members of the Second Continental Congress, or we probably wouldn't have a nation by now and still be under British rule." This didn't seem to faze my mother. I guess she just let it roll right off her back. Oh my. Oh. This one is about SEX.
We all know what it is, dear, and we know how to spell it.
Thank God, something interesting at last. Lead on that duck and read it.
Do you think I should?
Damn it, Tia, read it.
As I look back at my early adolescence, I recall a particularly memorable day with my mom at the local soda fountain. We had ordered ice cream sodas. Mine was strawberry, which at the age of 12 was my favorite. She had chocolate, which was hers. I was in junior high. That glorious time when your body is in an upheaval and you're desperately trying to cope with all the changes. I had heard whispered remarks in school about sex. Although I already knew about menstruation, I didn't quite get the whole picture about the birds and the bees. I was a good girl and shy and would have never talked about sex with any of my girlfriends. Fortunately, I had a mother who would always answer my questions and was not embarrassed talking about sex.
How's your soda, Mom?
Wonderful as usual. And yours?
Okay, I guess.
You guess?
No, it's great. Yeah, it's great. It's wonderful.
It's just a soda, hon. It doesn't need an endorsement.
What?
Never mind. Is something bothering you? You seem a bit distracted.
Yes. No, yes. I've heard some of the girls talking, and I think they're a little goofy. So you want to explain how this, sex thing works?
Why, of course, dear. Well, then.
No way! That's disgusting. I'm never going to do anything like that. Yuck!
Yes, dear honey, when you grow up, get married, yes, you will. And you know what? You might even like it.
Needless to say, my parents had a long and loving marriage. I have been equally blessed, and best of all, my mom was right. Stop it! This isn't funny. This is really, really important stuff.
What are you getting so touchy about, for God's sake?
Tia, are you all right?
Oh, actually, I'm more than all right. I didn't want to say anything until I knew for sure, but Walt and I are going to have a baby. I'm almost 3 months pregnant. Thank you.
You know, the Tia's news is a nice distraction, but we better get back to work.
Yes. Can we get back to reading all these important messages about Mommy?
You know what? Important is right. What these women say is important. At least to me it is. No, hell, it's damn important. I have no frame of reference from going from one foster home to another like I did. There is obviously so much more to being a mother, let alone a really good mother. How do you know what is important from what isn't? Do I discipline the child for putting waffles into the VCR? Well, do I laugh when she comes down the stairs stark naked in the middle of a party? Oh, God, what have I gotten myself into?
What was important? Sports were important.
Not just sports. Baseball was important. Remember when you and your brother and I would go down to Yankee Stadium every weekend for the games? It was great. Of course, it was always a big problem for your brother. I never quite understood why he objected so much to my talking to the people around us.
Maybe it was because you always lectured us about not talking to strangers, yet you did it everywhere we went.
Yes, I suppose that could have had something to do with it.
Funny, I haven't thought about those things in years. They were such great times.
You know what else was important? I'll tell you what was important. It was chocolate.
I guess chocolate was important. At least, I know it was in our family. Mom used to make homemade chocolate cake, chocolate pudding, chocolate cookies, and chocolate chip pound cake. She used to tease about it, saying it was a family chocolate gene. Yet, to her great consternation, my brother didn't inherit this gene. And worse yet, he much preferred store-bought cake to homemade.
I know what was important to my mother. Reading was important. Look at Nana, she would say. She's over 70 and works hard all day. But every evening after dinner, the first thing she does is read her newspaper from cover to cover. I can still see my mom with my baby brother in the carriage taking me to the big building on 145th Street between Amsterdam and Broadway. It was a special day because I was finally old enough to get my very own library card like Mom had. She even let me go in by myself. What a moment. The smell of wood and books filled the rooms. It was all for me, and it was all free. I got so excited, I ran to the shelves and just grabbed the first books I saw. When I got to the desk to check out, the lady asked if I was sure these were the books I wanted. I said yes. And I ran outside to proudly share my first choices with my mother. She about doubled over in laughter. Seems all the books I had chosen were in foreign language. But we spent some time together. We looked at the pictures. We tried to figure out what some of the words meant. And I learned to be more careful in the future. Oh, the books and the stories and the music. Music was important. During the opera season, the radio would fill our apartment with the sounds of Verdi and Puccini from the Metropolitan Opera House. Or in the summer, the free outdoor concerts where we'd go to hear and see the great classical performers of the day. Or the record player, playing the sounds of Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, Mario Lanza, and oh, my mother's favorite, Johnny Mathis, singing both the Our Father and the Kol Nidre. Oh, I can still see the two of us together, cleaning or cooking, as we listened to the music that always filled our small apartment.
I wonder if I can figure out what was important to my mother. It's not so hard, really, because the first thing that pops into my head is school. Education was important. The center of education in our apartment was the kitchen. That's where Mom heard our times tables and our spelling words every night as she washed dishes or ironed clothes. Sometimes it was geography. Mom loved geography, and she knew the capital of every state. Another favorite was history. Mom taught us that history was one big story that hadn't ended yet. She agreed to help me go to college, despite the continued financial burden it meant. This is what parents are supposed to do, she would say. Give their children the preparation to be successful in life. God, how did she do it? Work all day and still have time to work with us at night? I guess it's because that's the way she was raised. Dear Lord, Tia is right. This is important.
25th birthday, my mother said, "I'm taking you to the city to see a play."
This was her way of consoling me since, in her words, I was now officially an old maid. Of course, this was followed by a litany of how she and Dad never approved of any of my boyfriends, otherwise known as prospective husbands. In particular, she hated that Steve. Then was the constant concern about whether or not I was pregnant, and my stock answer, "No, Mom, I just like my beer." It was a mistake to answer that question in that way because it led to her usual comments on my general condition, such as, "You have no manners," or "You and your roommate live like sluts." But it was my 25th birthday, and I wanted to have a little fun with her. So I stopped her dead in her tracks with, "Actually, Mom, we're raging lesbians together."
It does sound just like my mom and my sister, doesn't it, Marge?
Oh, right.
Stay with us, Marge. No sleeping on the job.
Yeah, well, I wasn't sleeping. You know, some things are not always as they appear.
What do you mean?
Sometimes you know exactly how things are supposed to be, and then life up and serves you a whole new menu.
What on earth are you talking about?
Well, it's like this motherhood thing. We each have our own preconceived ideas of what moms should be. Is she Malcolm in the Middle mom, or Roseanne mom? What are moms supposed to be or not be?
Well, like this last mom. Oh, brother.
Yeah, like her. But what about, say, well, like stepmoms? They're moms, but what's the picture we all have?
Cinderella's.
Margaret Hamilton, Wizard of Oz.
Well, the Queen is Snow White.
Well, she's not a stepmom, but mommy dearest?
Well, listen to this one. My stepmom came into my life when I was a child of 8 years old in 3rd grade. She was only 10 years older than me and took on her plate a lot with 3 motherless, wild Indian, prankster-type children with an equally crazy father. We had been alone for so long that we thought we knew all the answers, and if we didn't, we could fake it well enough to get by. My stepmom is soft-spoken, kind, gentle, and thoroughly compassionate. She loved us and nurtured us and got us to listen to her. We still listen, discuss issues at hand, get her unbiased suggestions, which help us come to the realization of what is right and not right, what may be politically correct or accepted, to be the right person, the honest person, the one who is a good friend, companion, mother, father, or worker. She has given of herself to everyone who encounters her. I learned the lesson of pass it on way before that movie came out. Even when she was less fortunate, she always took the time out to help the elderly. She showed us how to slow down, to enjoy the simple things in life, to appreciate family and friends, and to help strangers, even if they don't really deserve it. Love your animals. Be thankful for your health. Share your wealth. Call people back. Be a person of your word. She taught all these things by example, which is really and truly the only way one learns on this earth. Years and years of her example taught me to be a better person. It taught me to be more patient. It taught me that this too shall pass. She taught me to love the small things, which I still do today. Life is too short to hold a grudge or take it out on someone else. If I can be 1/10 of the parent to my children that she was to me, then I will have succeeded in life.
Oh my God.
That is beautiful.
Barbara!
What? I'm just saying, a good brush can go a long way.
Regardless, she'll make a good mother because she had such a good woman for her role model.
Hey, it's not just the women who can clue in on motherhood. Don't forget our lone wolf here.
Ooh, big guy.
Listen to this. My id and my ego often waged a war on my psyche at $100 an hour.
So, what seems to be the problem, young man?
I'm not sure.
Are you afraid of dogs?
Yes,
Heights?
yes. And drowning. And bugs. But that's not quite it.
I'm listening.
It's not the Charlie Brown fear of everything. And it's not the FDR thing, the fear of fear itself.
You're doing so well, young man.
I know. I've been on a plane, ridden on a ferry, played with dogs. Hell, I've even gotten dressed up for Halloween.
Quite embarrassingly so from the pictures I've seen. But this fear that you speak of, it's a healthy fear. At least in its simplest form.
Really?
Sure. It informs much of what we will do. And be. And become. It is not to put too fine a point on it. Who we are. Personally, I fear for today's youth because they have no fear. Sure, it helps them overcome some obstacles in life, yet it equally devalues so much, not the least of which is parental authority.
Hey, Doc, we're talking about me here.
Well, sorry. Listen, it's quite simple. You may think you're blaming your mother for everything you're afraid of, but in actuality, you've harnessed that fear, used it to your advantage. You should really thank her, that dear woman.
So what you're saying is my mother, by unintentionally raising me to fear everything, instinctively taught me to overcome it all?
In effect, yes.
I lost my job, I fought with my brother.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
My wife left me, my mother died.
You're a pillar of strength.
Suddenly, dogs and doctors don't seem so important. I feel like I can be there for my family and friends. Offer them a shoulder, lend them money, say a prayer or a eulogy. I'm cured.
Not entirely.
What do you mean?
Now, if I can only get this spider to leave me alone. He's staring at me. You've got to love this guy.
Charlie Brown. You know, leave it to a man to make it so damn convoluted. We got to introduce him to her.
Ellen's drink. Knock it off. Tia's right. He makes good sense.
Okay, enough already. Is this going to turn into a parenting class for Tia?
Oh, no. Okay, Barbara. You were right. Maybe we've gotten a little sidetracked with Tia's good news.
Seriously, one of my problems is that some of these sound so similar, they can blend into just one mother description. Take this first one, for instance. My earliest memories are ones of tradition, routine, consistency, reliability, and warmth. Prepared lunches, oatmeal for breakfast, baked apple pies on Friday nights, everything homemade. All done in a household of 7 children. Mother staying up all night to finish a special outfit on time. Mom on the stepladder, painting or wallpapering or hanging newly made curtains. Always giving credibility to the title of mother and homemaker. Every day met with an inexhaustible well of fortitude that never runs dry. Or the second one. One of my earliest memories of my mother was a bitter cold winter evening, standing at a bus stop in Brooklyn with her tucking me under her coat to keep me warm. It gave me a feeling of warmth and safety. When thinking of my mother, there are many adjectives that come to mind. Pride, respect, dignity, and selflessness. Pride was not a feeling of self-importance, but rather a knowledge of who she was and the basis of her principles to follow. My mother was never boastful nor ostentatious. She was always respectful in her dealing with her family and her peers. I never heard her brag or gossip. Selflessness was part of my mother's being. She said, "You do what you have to do." She put forth enormous energy in all that she did, even the most mundane of daily tasks. You see what I mean? These two women could be writing about the exact same mother. The characteristics and the tone of the essays, they're just so similar.
But what happens if we read something from someone we know, or worse yet, someone we're related to?
I wouldn't put it past my sister to write, or for that matter, my mother. She thought my Nana walked on water.
Your Nana? The one who smoked like a chimney? Had your mother when she was 14 and had a tryout with the Chicago Cubs during World War II?
That's her.
Yeah, I wouldn't know if my mother did or did not.
I could hear the keys of the old Royal typewriter resonating on the kitchen table as I tossed in my bed. As I squinted to see the dial of my glow-in-the-dark clock, I could see that it was 3:15 in the morning. The sound from the typewriter provoked a peculiar anxiety, as I was unsure of my mother's motives for writing. The sound from the typewriter muted as she carried on a monologue, and then the concerting clack-sharp began again. I sighed as I weighed whether she was inspired, agitated, depressed, or rueful over some event in her life. Was she writing an editorial to the newspaper over an event that aroused her ire, as she had done so often? Or was she writing a poem? Was she writing to a beloved friend with whom she had a disagreement? Or was she finishing an assignment for college for which she bravely took courses well into her adulthood? I could envision her using all caps to illustrate her impassioned passages, or using the red part of the ribbon to bellow out her sentiments. My mother had a pseudonym, Sadie Finucane. As Sadie fervently used her words to mark another passage in her life, I dare not interrupt her for two reasons. The noblest reason is that writing is a cathartic process that can lose its moment in time. I also did not want to get out of bed and have a conversation at this hour. I thought it was so nifty. It was 1961, and she gave herself another name, and that I knew what a pseudonym was at the age of 11. She would always stress the meaning of words and articulation. I could not go witcha, I had to go with you. But even as she stressed the merits of good pronunciation, she would have her idiosyncrasies. God, would I die when she would dress like a beatnik, wearing all black, black stretched pants, black boots, and a fringed black top, and she would pick me up at school like this? I would deny that she was my mother and feign distress that I was being kidnapped. Just like that commercial today. Is that your mother? Nope. Sadie was hyperbole personified. Her phenomenal imagination, combined with a passion for life's significance, produced an exaggerated response to existence.
You know, honey, you can come to me any time if you find yourself pregnant and unwed.
Ma, I'm only 6 years old. Since my teenage years, Sadie would always stress that I should call my grandmother on her birthday, as she might not have another. She told me this for the next 41 years, as my grandmother passed away 2 weeks shy of her 100th birthday. Always open to new philosophies, she embraces all whom she meets with an engaged curiosity. While some mothers were going to see Billy Graham, mine was going to see Timothy Leary. We experienced a very eclectic religious background, as we were members of many different houses of worship. With a passion for holidays, she would embellish the house in a fashion that would put Christmas City to shame. This would include a Hanukkah bush decorated with Christmas ornaments, as well as every device that can emit a sound. One could hear, "What child is this?" while lighting a menorah. We had Easter chicken soup and Halloween cats with arched backs pasted on the front window. Sadie has a heart that has no limits. As a child, I would never know who she invited off the street to come sleep in our house. She would invite every kid from the neighborhood into the cellar to learn how to tap dance. She once saved a boy's life whose clothing had been set on fire in the field behind our house. Sadie is a survivor. She has outclassed breast cancer, pancreatitis, 2 abdominal aneurysms, cardiac stents, arthritis, and Crohn's disease, while always thinking of others. She would write about it, whether it would be a literary venture or a letter to someone else.
Sadie now writes on the computer, where the sound of clackety-clack is now transformed to, "You've got mail." She now has a screen name instead of a pen name. Of course, in good keeping, AOL knows her as Martyr78. I know her as the person who gave me life, my friend and my muse.
That's just lovely.
I thought you were supposed to be an impartial observer.
Oh, God forbid I should unduly influence someone.
It's impossible not to project our experiences onto some of these.
Well, but remember, the question isn't who's the best mother. The question is which is the best essay on a mother. Remember, this is for Ellen and her shrink, too.
But there are so many questions, and yet I have no answers.
Why was Mother so conscientious? She always helped me with my homework. If I had a difficult problem, she would patiently work with me until I finished. I wished she wasn't so conscientious. I'd rather have forgotten the whole thing and told the teacher in the morning that I didn't understand the questions.
Why was Mother so protective? She would stay awake until I came home from a party. Oh, she went to bed, but I know she stayed awake. What was she worried about? I was 16 and experienced. I knew about the world. What was she afraid of? Oh, she always wanted to know all about my friends. She asked so many questions. How embarrassing.
Why was she always there? Mother always took the most pictures and applauded the loudest at any get-together or ceremony. It annoyed me at times, but she always encouraged me to do my best. When I did, she looked so proud, and when I didn't, she always stood by me. She would always be there when I needed a shoulder to cry on.
What, no questions, Barb?
No. No questions, and I'm sick to death of reading this stuff. Look at these. My mother is a classy lady. Her great sense of humor enabled her to deal with and accept the not-so-perfect aspects of her life. She was strong, a great teacher whose students loved her. Everyone adored her. Uh-oh, here come the examples to prove this. Mom would stay up half the night on Christmas Eve washing and ironing clothes for all of my dolls so they could be arranged on the piano bench to greet me in the morning. Since I was a depression baby, she bought all of my clothes, especially ski pants, so I'd get at least 2 years out of them. Those ski pants came in mighty handy the day she sent me to first grade with no underpants on. Despite that, she's still the one person on earth that I totally trusted. Oh, and here's another wonderful mother. My mother's life may have seemed ordinary for a woman of her time. She cooked meals, she did her housework, she planted flowers and vegetables, sewed her children's clothing, read bedtime stories to them, monitored their studying, and, by word and example, instilled in them a love of God, family, and country. She had to share the demanding duties of proprietorship of the family's little general store, but she rose to the extraordinary in her heroic sense of sacrifice for her family, her patient acceptance of God's will in times of pain and hardship, her devout, unwavering faith in God's providence, and her beautiful, Christ-like charity. No one is that good.
Barbara, you're impossible. Can't you see the good in anything? Maybe we're all just weary. It's getting close to quitting time. Let's concentrate and get through these, narrow them down to 3 or 4 so that
young girl so dearly cherished by the nuns in grade school, started in her early teens to climb her way up to burnisher, a coveted position at Scammell's China Pottery. In fact, the Mother Superior at St. John's pleaded with my grandmother not to take this intelligent, scholarly child from school to start working. To this request, grandmother turned a deaf ear. But in learning to cope with an atmosphere unlike that at school, Mother fared well with her refined, sociable personality. And though disappointed, she made the transition working there until her marriage. She keenly understood the need to supplement the family income because family would dominate her life. Meanwhile, Peter Forrester, an old friend of her brother's, arrived for a visit. Though he was most disappointed not to find him home, he was most taken with my mother. Over the next year, he courted her and finally asked her to marry him. She accepted, but only if he'd wait until the two youngest siblings were out of school and employed. Dad complied.
I can't believe she made him wait.
I can't believe
Hey,
he waited.
At that point, Father received the transfer to the Wheeling, West Virginia Bridge Company. When that job ended, the family traveled north for an extended visit with Dad's relatives. Mother now enjoyed the benefits of the family life in the home of Dad's prosperous, retired father, his saintly Irish mother, and friendly siblings. This came to an abrupt end when a letter from Trenton brought unwelcome news that Aunt Nell, who had become the homekeeper after Mother had married, suddenly had herself gotten married. She ended the lease on the family home, placed the 4 younger children in a boarding house, and had moved away. Such news involving a break in family solidarity convinced Mother to return to Trenton.
You know who she is? She's George Bailey.
How's that?
George Bailey, It's a Wonderful Life. You know, everything is about somebody else. She delayed her marriage to take care of her younger siblings, and then she goes back to take care of the family again after this Aunt Nell business. She converted the 3rd floor of the family home to accommodate her widowed sister. She paid off the mortgage for 10 years, set aside her stylish wardrobe for more suitable public dress, even returned to a burnisher job at Lenox after her husband died.
What the hell is a burnisher anyway?
I just Googled it. It was a job at the pottery factory that used a small tool to smooth the rough edges of the pottery. Very meticulous work, not for just anybody.
Well, that's kind of like what she was doing with her own family. Molding the rough edges, polishing what was...
What, a work of art?
No, listen, there's more. My mother was a woman of prayer. She believed sacrifice necessary to obtain special petitions. I noticed since I sat next to her at table, I saw her fasting from special foods. I think I'm beginning to understand. This is all about sacrifice.
The whole George Bailey thing.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing half these things. Not for my sisters, and we get along fine.
I couldn't either.
But each time she put her wishes and desires aside.
For what?
The greater good? No! To do what is right. Sacrifice. That is what this is all about.
What makes this essay for you better than all the others?
This part right here. When one finds a worthy wife, her value is far beyond pearls. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and her tongue is kindly counsel. She watches the conduct of her household, and her children rise up and praise her. Her husband, too, extols her. Many are the women of proven worth, but you have excelled them all. That is from the Bible.
Well, Tia's obviously found what she thinks is the best essay. Myself, I think we need drama. It sells magazines, and Ellen will love it, and I've got it right here. Listen to this.
In order for me to write this essay, I had to go into my mother's closet and take out a worn old brown overnight luggage case. This has served as a repository for all records and memorabilia that were in my mother's life. Marie Louise was born May 29, 1929, or so she told me. The birth certificate in the suitcase, however, says 1927. I've since learned from her French girlfriend that during the war, teenagers in their hometown of Nice, France were considered children. This meant that the family were eligible for more food supply, and the family did not think twice to change the dates to ensure a bit more food in a time of such hunger. During the war, my mother suffered one tragedy after another. First, her mother died of cancer, and her siblings died of illnesses that today would be cured by proper medicines. All she had left was Grandmère, who used all her energy and wit to contact the French resistance and to find Marie Louise a means of escape from the horrors of the occupation. So it was that my mother joined a wealthy family who escaped to England with their child, and my mother as the child's nanny. While in this part of her journey, Marie Louise carried all her worldly goods in a small brown suitcase. But more importantly, locked away in this bag was a lifetime of grief and loss that would never be unpacked. My mother's adopted family soon ended their journey in Long Beach, New York. Many records are missing, but I know my mother graduated from school because she became a registered nurse. She met my father and they married. I know my mother worked nights as a nurse, and my father served in the army in the Korean conflict. My mother had a wonderful landlady who was more than overjoyed to keep an eye on the sleeping baby. The years that followed, I can only reflect upon as memories viewed and stored from the eyes of a child. My parents worked as to not owe anyone, even family members, any favors. But kind neighbors were the forces shaping my mother's lifestyle. The warmth and goodness these Italian immigrants shared were strongly molding my mother's habits. One such memory was that coffee could turn your blonde hair black. My father's family were all light-skinned, light-eyed Northern Italians, and my mother's side all had warm, olive complexion kissed by the French Riviera's sun. My mother was the only brunette in the family, and her long black curly hair was not appreciated.
It is not surprising the sayings, the beliefs, and even certain habits which have shaped my mother's life enveloped my home as a youngster. Fortunately, I can look back on the many practices and beliefs fondly and smile, knowing I will have many stories to pass on to anyone interested in listening or reading the tales of a young French girl who came to this country with a little brown suitcase in hope of finding a new life in a free country. Anyone else want to go out on a limb?
No. We'll never really know these mothers well enough to judge them, because they buried their sorrows. And as kids, I guess we were too young to understand that. I think now that's probably what my mother did.
You want drama? I'll raise you one Italian immigrant against your French immigrant.
Call?
Despite the challenges of her family being deserted by her father, the ensuing handicap of poverty, only being able to acquire the equivalent of an 8th grade education and a world war, my mother carved out a life for herself and her family. It took sacrifice. It began with the sacrifice of her childhood as she entered trade school early in order to help support the family, rather than going on for her higher education. She became both a seamstress and a tailor and worked successfully at her profession for 50 years. She married, but unfortunately it was in 1942 when the world was at war and her husband was drafted into the Italian army. She gave birth to me at home with the assistance of her mother and her aunt, a midwife. Medical care was poor to non-existent. As she accepted the challenge and we survived. She even stood up to the church in the pre-Vatican II era when a priest refused her absolution because she was being careful not to get pregnant again until there was enough food to feed and care for another child in the devastation of post-war Italy. She believed to bring a child into the world was a serious responsibility, not to be taken lightly. A Eventually, as economic conditions worsened in Italy, she and my father decided to immigrate to America. Life in America meant more hard work, but life improved. And after 20 years and 2 stillbirths, she had her son. Once more, life was filled with challenge. Not until my brother graduated from law school did she say, "Congratulations, me too, today I retire." Like everything else about my mother, her idea of retirement is interesting. Yes, she loves her trips to Atlantic City, but she balances that with crocheting lap robes for senior citizens in nursing homes. Her reaction to her early poverty is interesting. The Great Depression in the U.S. started around 1921. As they grew up, children of economically starved times, such as depression in Italy, became either thrifted or accepted. My mother became both. She'll purchase filet mignon, but only on sale. 15 pounds at a time, and store it in one of the 2 or 3 refrigerators that run in our home. At the end of the day, my mother has lived a life tempered by sacrifice. But isn't that the greatest tribute of life? Christian, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist all recognize the act of love embedded in sacrifice. Her life has been happy, a word that comes from Aramaic, which originally translated as blessed. Hallelujah! Blessed are the mothers!
Yes, yes. Blessed are the mothers who get up every day and do it without the drama. Look, this one reads like my own mother. So shut up and listen. You could learn. When my mother died and we were preparing the obituary notice, the funeral director asked me about Mom's interests and organizations. I had to think really hard, and it hit me. Her only interest in organization was her family. My mother was the typical homemaker of the 1950s. Dad had to get up every morning at 3 o'clock to work as a Wonder Bread delivery man. So Mom would get up early every morning to make a breakfast of bacon, eggs, and coffee so he could start the day off right. Our house was immaculate. Ironing was done in front of the TV so she could watch her favorite soap operas. Everything was ironed, even the pillowcases. Then she would get busy preparing an early 4 o'clock dinner for us all. Evenings were family TV. Mom would sit on the couch and either Dad or I would lie with our head in her lap. Mom was the best back scratcher and hair stroker ever.
Who are these women?
My mother taught me all sorts of lessons. That Daddy and I were a reflection of her. High school, college, be a teacher. Always said in one breath. Hard work and education will get you places. Soap and water are cheap. Poverty is no excuse for being dirty. But most of all, I learned how to be a loving, giving wife, mother, and friend. I learned this from the example of how she lived her life.
Barb, what the hell is wrong with you?
Okay, everyone, calm down. Barbara, you've been bucking us all day. What's the problem?
The stupid contest is my problem.
None of us are too thrilled about it, but it's part of the job, and you've done it before. What's so different this
I
time?
hate it. That's what's different.
Not good enough.
Leave it. It's my mess. I'll clean it up.
What's the difference?
It's personal.
A contest?
No, damn it.
What?
I can't have children. I can't ever be a mother. What does that say about me? Do you have an answer for that?
Actually, yes, I do. You can have children. You can be a mother.
Didn't you just hear?
Haven't you been listening? It's not about biology, Barbara.
mothers give. The ability to take responsibility for a life, to love and to sacrifice, isn't science. It is who you are. None of us knew about your situation, but I know what you're going through. It's why I adopted Laura. I didn't work here at the time, and I don't wave a flag about it because, to be honest, it's not who she is. My adopted daughter, she's my little girl. And I, too, am in awe of all of these memories. They remind me of what an example these women have set by the way they live their lives.
But suppose I can't do this. Look, my mother messed me up because she wasn't like all these women.
Hey, you know how it hurts. So would you do the same? Now do you have a really good How to Be a Mother manual? Yeah, great. I got it. You and Bill can adopt. If you start now, we could be pregnant together. But you'll just deliver a little bit later. You think? Hey,
I think.
You? Okay, this one. Barbara? I'll go with Tia's pick.
Oh, hey, it's an Oprah moment.
So can we go home now?
Yes.
Marge.
Dear Lord, I wonder what Ellen will dream up for us next.
But wait, Ellen still has to decide which of these essays best proves the effect of mothers on their daughters is negligible in the negative, and the effect for the better is in the positive.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
We did that. I'm out of here. Before I start to understand that. Good night, Miss Leslie.
One more essay from our friendly mail guy.
Yeah.
Got my lunch back. Hey, Leslie, you think what's wrong?
My mommy is a loving mommy.
She feeds me and clothes me and cares about me, and she never ever tries to shoo me out to play. My mommy likes the same things that I like. For instance, I like to crochet and she likes to crochet. She likes to sew and I like to sew.
It's from my Laura.
Nobody's ever accused Ken and I of being at a loss for words, but I have to admit we have been an absolutely brilliant audience for our very brilliant cast tonight. And for the people who actually gave us the words. Last night we had 7 of our authors with us. Tonight we have two of our authors with us. So I'm giving them the galley for their particular part of the book. For Maria. There you go. We would also like to take this moment to thank Mr. Parker. Jim Parker gave us a home when nobody else would. And he has done all of this for us, and I just think he's just the most wonderful person in the world outside of this cast. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming tonight, and please go home and treat your mothers well tomorrow. Okay? Thank you.